Welcome to another episode of Decorate Like a Design Boss. And today I'm introducing you to Courtney Krug and her fabulous brand called At300Nelson. At300Nelson takes Courtney's love of color and pattern and offers something tangible for all to enjoy with one-of-a-kind fabric by the yard and made-to-order pieces. This is a brilliant story of how these goods are created, how Courtney's love of the environment really helps her create a sustainable product, and her tips and tricks on how you can incorporate just the right fabrics into your own home. So let's get started as I introduce you to Courtney Krug. Welcome to Decorate Like a Design Boss, a podcast for design lovers who want to create beautiful spaces in their very own homes. My name is Kimberly Grigg, and I'm a professional interior designer who teaches design lovers like yourselves how to decorate. And when I say decorate, I mean decorate like a design boss. If you're ready to create a space that your family loves and your neighbors can't stop raving about, well, buckle up, honey, because it's time to design. Well, hello, Courtney Krug, and I am so happy to meet you and share you with my listeners and learn all about this fabulously cool brand that you have. So welcome.
Well, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for.
So, Courtney, I jumped on your website and I'm so fascinated. I don't even know where to begin, but I got to start with, just for the listener, the brand is called 300Nelson, right?
Yeah, At300Nelson.
At300Nelson. So how did this name happen?
Excellent question. It is actually a place that I lived in California, where it's where I just said, like, this is it. This is what I'm doing. You know, everything kind of came together. And I'm trying to come up with a name, and I played with so many different things. And it was such an impactful point in my life. And, you know, again, everything coming together, it was just 300Nelson. And
I love it. I love it. You know, this is so interesting. I knew we'd be kindred spirits. So, you know, I have Kimberly Grigg Designs, but the design and what used to be the retail portion of my business is called Notting Hill Interiors. And it was because I had just been to Notting Hill in Europe, and I just inserted a K, which was kind of a big mistake just because my name started with a K and I thought that would be clever, except I've spent the rest of my career spelling Notting Hill. but at least, you know, I do kind of get when you're starting to name a business, you do kind of like, I don't know, there's something about from whence you came that can play a really important integral part of the business. But I want to get into, what is the brand? What is it that you do? And you got to remember, my listener is just a listener, so she can't see all these beautiful things necessarily at this point. So tell us what it is that you create and what products are available.
Yeah, no. So At300Nelson is, I call it fiber and dry goods. So at the foundation and the core of it, we design fabrics, textiles. And the dry goods portion is, you know, I wanted to offer something, you know, turn it into something tangible. Not everybody wants to buy, you know, fabric yardage, you know, and drapes, you know, like not everybody is, sometimes people start. And so the dry goods were a great way to put it into more of a finished kind of artwork. You know, and 300Nelson, it really started, I think, at the core of it, I'm an artist. For me, it all began with drawing and painting and, you know, and fine arts. And then this was really a way for me to take what I love, do what I love, and just kind of combine it all. I think I always, I loved graphic design. I loved fashion, you know, and fashion I really liked because I love the movement of fabric and the way that it drapes and the way that it moves. graphic design. I love, the art, illustration, all of the things. It's so in these textiles, I'm able to combine all of that and take all of these influences and really put it into a finished piece of art.
So tell us, like, what is the look and the vibe like in your words? I want to hear your words, and then I'll tell you what I kind of garnered when I first went to your website and was so mesmerized by your products. So what's the vibe from you?
A lot of people have said, and I didn't necessarily intend for it to come out this way, but it did. There's a huge mid-century influence in there. I love architecture. I love nature. And so for me, there's always these intersections of things against different types of art, different types of design. And so there is this sort of indie intersection of mid-century architecture, woodblock printing. Is it Bauhaus? Forgive me if I said that incorrectly.
Yes, yes.
It's really just an intersection of all of those things and this like Southern California lifestyle, in the 50s, 60s. If I could just have a living room like a record producer back in the day.
So yeah, and the vibe I got was exactly as you're describing it. But I also think that there's a little elegance. I think the graphic influence is the way that you portray it. There is such an elegance, like California casual and boho can be really, really casual. And I'm all for that. But I also love it when you can tie in a little bit of elegance to that. And you did that very magically. I don't know if that was intended, but I see it.
Thank you.
Yeah. And go ahead.
I think I love, like again, in fashion, just the way that a piece of fabric drapes and runs. So there is sort of this lyrical quality that I think I'm attracted to and that runs through. And maybe that's something that was into it.
Yes. So did you just come out of the womb drawing and painting? I mean, how did all that come about?
I did actually. I'm left-handed.
Me too.
Yeah, no, but it, as you grow up, everything evolves. So yeah, when I was a kid, I used to do cartoons, sketch cartoons, then you're a kid. So it's whatever you're into at the moment. And then I really got heavily into painting and just trying to really I think as a kid, I'm trying to draw something recognizable, something that's in my mind and get it out on paper. And then as I was in school and studying painting, then you're trying to break it apart and abstract it. And then, so it is kind of, you're tightly wound and then you open it up and then tightly wound and open it up. So, yeah, I need to create, I need to draw, get my hands.
That's a great way to put it, because as someone who creates, my medium is, even though I am a painter too, but my medium on a day-to-day basis is interiors, and which is the same exact process. And, there could be days where I'm really having maybe I'm tight and, and it doesn't flow as easily. But then there are days when, it's almost like when I get on site on a project, a lot of times I'm tight when I'm at the shop pulling accessories and I'm trying to really weave the whole thing together in the end on an installation. And yet when I get to that place, and I think in art for me, and I'm sure maybe it's this way for you, in art, I hit this flow state. And all of a sudden, my rational brain shuts down and my free brain takes over. And the next thing you know instinctively and intuitively what lamp to use and what artwork to hang and what pillow to put in and all of those things. And I sort of get this vibe when I was looking through your website of the way that you put things together. And I think that is part of the challenge of creativity, is trying to find that place over and over again. Do you feel that way as you create?
Oh, absolutely. It's so much about the journey. And to your point, it's I always crack up even to this day, whenever I sit down, whether it's an illustration, working out a new design, whether it's a painting, I always think I know exactly where it's going.
Me too.
And see it in my mind. And inevitably, you sit down, you start sketching it out. It's not like you have to kind of abandon
Right.
ship, go and get into it. And I think that's the beauty of it too. And then, just like you with interiors, with me creating these designs, there is that point where you're like, okay, I'm going to embrace this. Like, I thought we were going straight for it. We kind of took a right turn and then a left turn, but okay, I'm into it. You do it. And there's this, I think that's where the emotion, is expressed.
Yes. And if you go there, the result is so much better than when you try to contrive it to this preconceived notion. And I speak to a listener who is decorating their own space, and I try to tell them, if you can get into flow space and stop thinking so hard about what you should do and what you shouldn't do. It's why many designers say throw out the rules. If you can get to that space, then you literally can create. And however you get there is however you get there. Some people it's music, some people it's a podcast, some people it's silence. There's all sorts of ways. Some people it's wine, whatever it is. I'm one of those. But I think the main point is getting there. And I do like, how often do you create another collection? And like, how do you get yourself into that state?
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm working on the second collection right now. And I think that's a really interesting question because for me, there's music in the background. There's maybe Jake and I take a trip. We go take the back roads to these, backcountry areas where there is no one, immersing myself in nature, listening to music, doing maybe a glass of wine or two, all the things, trying to let those emotions show themselves and trying to really feel and embrace that. Because I would say too, on a day-to-day basis, you're like, as a designer, as a business owner, it's so easy to get caught up in all of the ops and what people like, what they don't like. It's so easy to get caught in the nitty gritty. And so there are things that can kind of help transport you back to that place of creativity. Just shut everything else out and let the creative process take back over. And it's, I think as I design a collection, we were talking about you start to design something and it's going this way, then it's going this way, but you finally put your fingers on like, okay, this is it. And I think it's probably similar actually to a musician when they're creating an album, and so for me, I think the second one, I'm like, okay, what is the next album? How does it to this first collection? Because there's so many different things I could create. There's so many different patterns I could do, but yeah, how does it tie into this first collection and have that brand signature, that stamp, that artist touch that it's the same person, but not become redundant? How does it evolve and what's the next chapter? Yeah. So there's a lot.
Yeah. So how often do you plan to release a collection?
That is an excellent question. I feel like annually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And will each collection grow on one another, or will a collection be a collection and then another collection and then another collection?
I believe right now I would like for them to grow on one another. So I think for the second collection, I say this and I might get carried away. I really
it doesn't always turn out like we think it's going to turn out.
Exactly. I do know in this next collection, it's funny, blue is actually my favorite color. And there's like no blue. There's like 3 indigos in this. And so I think in the next collection, I really want to start building out the blues, bring in some other tones that can build and work with this collection, but that have a different energy. I think this first one was
love that. I love that.
So so I'm actually, working on it right now. There is a huge natural influence. You'll still see some of those like same architectural influences that I love. A lot of it has come from being out in Utah and Moab and looking at the cliffs, but but then you've got the skies, the waters. It's a big natural influence. And a lot of it also Big Bend. My husband and I went out to Big Bend and ran the backcountry out there. And it was just incredible to be in the canyons and then the hot springs. And then you've got these open skies. And Oh my gosh, it was just breathtaking.
And inspiring, I am sure. Speaking of nature and natural, sustainability is a big part of your brand. Tell us about that. Why, how does all of that play into all of this?
Yeah. I mean, it's something that's super, super important to me. I think, where Jake and I live, I didn't realize that it was, really came out. I think it started as, I just feel like if you have a brand, you're doing anything with fabrics, like you've just got to make an effort to be sustainable. It's a requirement, right? Nowadays, you got to do it. And it's something that's super near and dear to my heart. Where we live in this beautiful natural space. And we've made a point to keep a lot of it. And it's so hard to see, around us. It's just developing overnight. Neighborhoods are popping up. And don't get me wrong, it's great. People have a wonderful place to live, progress, all the things. But I just have this, friends call me an environmentalist at heart. I just want to preserve everything that we can. And I think there's so many options out there too, in terms of sustainability. There's just so many smart ways to do things. Like you take, for example, Belgian linen. It's a fabric which I use, which has been around forever. And, here's this timeless, sustainable material that is so efficient in terms of the plant, what it does to the ground, the process, the people. So, I think it's really important. And I think if we want to preserve all of these gifts that we've been given, we've got to make an effort, and everybody has their part to play. And I feel like this is my part, this is my role. And there's some great materials other than Belgian linen that I look forward to exploring, that are a little bit more sustainable, but that have been around, for quite some time. I haven't used them.
So I know that your processes incorporate some sustainability, but I don't necessarily understand them. I know Belgian linen is natural in and of itself. So what happens when you have to, like a lot, if not all of your patterns and prints are printed on Belgian linen.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so what about chemicals that go into printing and that sort of thing?
Well, I was going to say the next piece of that sustainability is I certainly don't want anything toxic in my home. There's things, the air we breathe, there's things that you can't avoid. But when it comes to dyes and, all of that, I want to keep as a little toxicity as possible. So the process that we use for printing, they're all water-based inks. They're actually Ecotech certified. Process is a low VOC, so low on emissions, minimal water usage, even though they're water-based inks, minimal water usage and waste in the printing process. So it's really like kind of a holistic way to approach it. And the process itself actually really captures something that I wanted to keep in the designs. Is technology is amazing, right? It's how we're able to do this. It's how we're able to have a website to be a part of anyone's home anywhere. But I did want to keep in all of these great technological advances that make this possible. I did really want to, and I will continue to try to keep that evidence that a human was there, that evidence of the human touch. And so what I love about this process is it really captures all of those little nuances, whether it's, the brush, when I'm painting something, the brush leaves a little mark off to the side. You can see that, that someone was there. So those little marks of character are something that I think can get really lost in a hyper commercialized process. And so I've been really careful to maintain that.
I love that. I refer to it as the artist hand. I'm sure it's the same thing, but I think that makes something so real and livable. And what a unique approach and idea. And it keeps it from feeling mass produced, which I also love. And I think that our culture and world is kind of turning to this now, especially considering the COVID situation and so on and so forth. And so, yay, hats off to you. So one of the things that I noticed in your work is pattern, but it's not just any pattern. To me, it's almost like pattern that reads solid in an interesting way, because having worked with people for all of these years and helping them explore pattern, I often will get pushback the minute I use the word pattern. Oh, I don't use pattern. And typically they're afraid of pattern. But your patterns provoke no sense of fear whatsoever, even though they're bold. And they look to me to be an easy entry into the world of pattern. So was this intentional, or am I reading it wrong, or did it just happen, or have you ever heard that before? Because to me, it seemed like, wow, this is an easy way to incorporate some pattern. It's safe.
Well, thank you. Actually, and that was intentional. That's exciting to hear you say that. It was intentional. They are bold. They're confident. There's contrast. There's strong lines, very linear quality. There's, this unapologetic sense, but at the same time, I wanted to be sure that it wasn't overwhelming. I was trying to find balance within the collection. And I think that's kind of where I was trying to figure out where I was going with that earlier in designing a collection. You want to find that balance. I want to find that commonality, that they're all different, but they can all be stacked and mixed. And if somebody lives in, and I think I envision also when I'm envisioning, I'm working on the design, but I'm also envisioning the space and trying to take, because you create a million patterns and they're beautiful, but like, is this going to fit in someone's home? What would it look like on a couch? What would it look like on a chair or drape? So the whole time I'm kind of mentally toggling back and forth. And I think in my mind, there is this room that's bare bones. And I'm trying to envision how the pattern would lay into that. And in that, maybe that's where the ease comes from. But yeah.
So do you think it's possible, or do you encourage people to mix patterns?
Oh, absolutely.
How do they do it?
I think even in my designs, when I was choosing colorways, I made sure that there's this commonality on the base and the color. So if it's like the pattern that you want to mix, you can mix all the black and whites together and it still works as one. If you wanted to stack it in terms of the colors, all of the greens build together. So you can mix any of the greens, but the ochres will kind of fall into the greens, and then the black and whites can mix with the greens, with the indigos, with the, that's actually how I chose the colors, because how do you narrow it down?
Well, and speaking of color, you do use color. And how do we keep using pattern and color from becoming busy? Because there's no busyness to what you're doing at all, even though the patterns are rather small in scale, but there's no busyness. And so how do you say to someone, what's a tip or a trick or a way to invite color and pattern into your home without becoming confused or overwhelmed?
Yeah, I think focus on where you want the statement. Like even when you're building an outfit, I love to keep the base monochromatic and let the pops be the pops. So same with pattern, I think it's not letting it get too busy, not letting it get taken over. So yeah, having a focus on, maybe it's this beautiful drapery that you want, build the room around that. And I mean, you're certainly more of an expert on that than me, but you want it on your couch, build everything in that particular zone around that, be mindful of it. If you have solid furniture, then let your pillows, your rugs, everything else have the pattern into it, but just try to find that balance, try to keep that focus and really figure out where you want to interject the print, or just let it go and embrace it.
I could approach your designs both ways. Like I could mix your prints, I think, very easily, because in some ways they read solid, except solid with interest. And so I could see even mixing in bold, large scale prints, and it would all work somehow. And still, I can also see it being very mid-century modern and more structured and natural. I could see both ways. And I'm sure you sell to designers as well. I'm sure some designers have done that. I mean, to me, that would be so super exciting. And I mean, is that also intentional in your work, that you could kind of mix it up any old way?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I was doing a photo shoot yesterday, and the photographer is someone that I'm really close with. And, we were just playing with different sets, setting up different vignettes. And she was like, Court, do you mean to mix all of those? I was like, oh, yes, very much so, because I want to tell people that it can be done and how to do it. And we've talked a lot about, or I've talked a lot about, there's that mid-century modern influence, but I recently was working directly with a client, and she's redoing her home, and she has a more, not a farm space, but she's got horses, all the things. She's got more of a Southwest influence. And I had so much fun taking my prints and like seeing her vision, hearing her vision, and thinking like, oof, this is going to be a tough one. But then once I got into it, she picked out, I want this kind of whiskey leather couch. I want this and this. And once I started playing with it, it was so much fun to start mixing in. Oh my gosh, this would be great. Add some turquoise. And, it's just this Southwest feel that I had never envisioned. And so really fun to take, my designs out of a context that is in my mind near and dear to my heart and mix it into someone else's life. So
I think I like the way you put that, because that was what I was trying to say. It's almost like taking it out of context, because it's I think it reads strong in what you do and stand for. But then if you can take it out of context, it's even stronger, broader than what I think that you would say, oh, it's not. It's so vast. And yet there's not hundreds of items to choose from, which I also like. So I want to kind of, just so the listener understands what all is available. I know that you sell fabric by the yard. You sell pillows. The pillows are already made as this dry goods, and then there's little ottoman stools. Yeah. Am I missing anything?
No, that is the current assortment. We've got different sizes in the pillows, different sizes. There's small rounds, medium rounds, a large square ottoman. But yes, that is the current collection.
And do the pillows come already stuffed? Or are they flat?
Yes, they come already stuffed. I'm using down feather inserts, and I have hypoallergenic available if that's the choice. And then we're using premium zippers, brass YKK. It's a metal lap zipper. The pillows are made not far from me, so I have a very close relationship with the upholsterers, and they're just incredible. And I love, love, love the way that Pam matches the seams. Oh, she does such an incredible job of bringing it to life. The ottomans, I'm also very close friends with the woodworker. He is a commercial woodworker by trade and can do the most beautiful wooden rounds you've ever seen. And just he's of the old school. His attention to detail, his attention to quality, and just his passion for it is pretty unparalleled. I love working with him.
So nice. So I think in any, especially creative business, it's sort of interesting when you meet these people. And I've done this for 29 years, and I still have the same people that I started with who do. And of course, the collection has grown in terms of how many and different vendors who do different things. But it is sort of amazing, because at this stage in my career, it's so easy to say, oh, perfect person to do this, perfect person to do this, perfect person to do this. And it ends up allowing the joy of your work to come through, because you know what you can count on. And, even the way the patterns are printed, all those things I would imagine in your business would be so important. And so while we're really kind of talking business, what is the future of the brand?
Oh, that is an excellent question. The foundation, the textiles will always be there. I do want to continue to grow the dry goods line. I'd love to tell you what we have in store.
Oh, are you teasing me?
Yeah, some very exciting things coming in the future. But yeah, I'll be looking to really grow the dry goods line, and just, the brand itself is a journey, and we're in the really early stages. I'm getting a lot of information from people, they don't even know that they're giving it, but just, it's not on a social media level. It's, you see how people, you can see a lot about how people react to things, what they like, what they don't like, what they're really drawn to. There's a lot of feedback that I'm really interested in. And I'm also seeing new things happening out there in the market, and I'm so inspired by all of that. So yeah, excited to see where it goes, excited to see the dry goods line. We do have also in the future of the brand. So I am building a studio actually on our property and in our space. We are building it out of decommissioned shipping containers. So in terms of sustainability, eco, all the things. So that has been an incredible journey. Just building that. The space is built high up, and just, panoramic views of the trees and the skies. Oh, it's amazing. So getting to design that space is, a creative journey all on its own. So excited to bring that to everyone as well.
So you're in St. Augustine. Is that right?
Yeah.
What a lovely area that is. I was there maybe a year or two ago on an artist retreat, and it was just phenomenal. Such a pretty, quaint little area and town. Loved it. Really loved it. So, okay, I know that one of the things that you mentioned to me early on in your bio was that you have a husband who creates custom cars. Did I read that correctly?
Yeah, you did. You did. Speaking of creative,
right?
creative households. I always have a hard time when people say, like, what does your husband do? It's so hard there's not a title. How do you put it into a title? His grandfather actually helped design one of the first Concorde jet with Braniff Airlines. So he's got this engineering mindset, this super, he's so good with his hands, creative, like all the things. So let's just say that if you wanted to drive down to Patagonia and you needed a vehicle that was, self-sustaining to take you there, and you had all these different little specs that you wanted, whether it was, someone might want a chef's kitchen, or, you need a design studio, you need a hotspot because you got to work while you're in the middle of Patagonia, like whatever you need, he builds it in. So he does mostly European vehicles, so Mercedes Unimogs, G-Wagons, and not the kind that you see, on the street driving around. He brings them in, and then they're purely custom and tailored to his client, tailored to the individuals. So, he knows their expertise level in terms of, would you be able to fix something on the side of the road in the middle of the Amazon if you needed to? How fast are you going to drive? Who's going with you? What do you want to do with it? So, and he knows the history of these vehicles and what they were and what's been done to them. And just, it blows my mind, all the little details. And then the vehicles themselves were of a time that they were hand built. So there's just all these, he's having to build and manufacture things to outfit them, to get them up to speed, literally, no pun intended, but, care of all of the mechanical aspects, and then the design aspects and functionalities. So it's just, even for him, a really holistic view and just a truly commissioned one-off. So we, of course, get to enjoy these. I think the hardest part for me is letting them go, when he's building, so attached. But it's a wildlife, but it is a lot of fun. So.
And I can't even imagine like two highly creatives in one household. Like, how does that work?
It's a lot, but we have a good time. I think he's a Scorpio, I'm a Pisces. I think people say that like doesn't mix, but we laugh about, we have our moments. But we make it work. I think we're complementary in terms of, personalities and how we are about things. But yeah, at least we both have our own space. You gotta get in the zone. But I do love, seeing what he does and being able to go out there to the shop and just hearing how his mind works and his process just blows my mind. So he's obviously a huge source of inspiration.
Wow. So let's circle back around a minute to this. My listener is a design enthusiast, and she wants more than anything for her home to be all that it can be and be beautiful, but she doesn't necessarily have a background in textiles or even in decorating. She just loves it. And so, how does she approach selecting textiles for her home?
Mm. Um, I feel like it starts with color. I think it starts with a lot of color, with a feel, with a color. Mm, that's a great question. When I was designing this, I was thinking a lot about how people shop, and I feel like there's a million designs out there, but there has to be this combination of things. So, how would she start? Yeah, I mean, find a color and build around it. Um, what do you think?
um,
Hmm.
I could agree with you. I mean, there's so many approaches, but I also feel like for a woman that is seeking textiles in her home, she has to first like the hand of it. And I think your use of Belgian linen is always a fave and a winner because it's luxury and yet it's casual all at the same time. Um, I think and then I think that you have to be a lover of the prints that you're choosing or the patterns that you're choosing. Like they have to resonate. And that's one of the things that I really admire about your work is that they're easy to love. They're not controversial. Like a lot of prints are controversial. You'll look, oh, that has a pineapple. I don't really like pineapples. That has a circle. I don't like circles. That has a square. I don't like square. All of those things over the years, I've had clients say to me, well, I don't like circles, or I don't like squares, or I don't like whatever, whatever, whatever. But your collection feels very easy to incorporate. And so I think for someone who's really trying to achieve success in their homes, it's easier when the elements are easy, such as your collection, which is kind of easy.
Well, thank you. I'm like, to pedal back. I'm so much in the weeds of this. I needed to take myself out of it. Actually, when I was choosing the fabric, that is exactly what I did was, I'm going through the different ones. I knew that I wanted something sustainable, but even for me starting out, it was, what is a texture that I love? I needed a texture. I needed the hand, the element. Yeah. And then thinking about pattern. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I always kind of liken process to process. So if you're writing a book, if you're painting, if you're creating a collection, if you're designing a custom car, there's this, there's everyone has a unique process, but there's also it's still a creative process. And yeah. I try to encourage my students and listeners to find a process. And I find that sometimes it's hard to get started, and sometimes it's hard to know when you're finished. So, what do you say to someone who's decorating and they're using your products? How do they get started, and how do they know they're finished? Any insight?
Are we ever finished? Are we ever finished?
Right.
And kind of combining two answers in one. We were talking a little bit about people have different likes and different dislikes. So, I love a good cactus. I could have printed a cactus on something, but that is a very closed thing. It's fine. It is exactly what it is. You recognize it. That's where your mind goes. So, I think starting out, find the print that you love, find that piece of art that you love, tie the color into it, pick a few of your favorite things. Maybe somebody gets started with a couple of pillows and they add it to a neutral couch. Maybe they're like a little bit more, have a pattern aversion to it. Start building it out, see where it goes from there. And then maybe you want to add a drape. Maybe you want to, add more black and white. You want to build out your greens to it. I mean, for me, again, it's an entire process. I don't know that I ever feel finished. I think that is a great question. How do you know when you're finished? That's a tough one.
Even as a designer who does this every day, I feel complete when I decorate someone else's home, but I never feel complete when I decorate mine. Maybe it's because it's my laboratory and I'm always constantly changing, upping, downing, editing, all those things, adding in, seeing something else that inspires me. That is just part of me as a designer. But I do struggle when I'm painting to know when I'm finished. You could keep painting on the same painting for the rest of your life. And that could be good or bad. But I try to find an endpoint or help a client find an endpoint. That's easy for me to do. But the design enthusiast, I would offer, step back. When you think you're finished, step back, let your eye adjust, live with it, and then edit something out. And then see how that feels. 3 days for your eye to adjust. And then if you edit and you step back and you took something away and you really miss it, it belongs there, which is a real interesting concept. I do that. I practice that in my own home. And it works. And, you have to almost let something go, that old saying, let something go to see if you really love it kind of thing. Sort of the same thing, I think, with design. But anyway, that's just kind of my sidebar approach to something like that. And
you said it beautifully. Absolutely. And that, again, yesterday there, the photographer was there. My husband was there. We did an offsite. The business owner was there, and everyone kept asking as I was setting everything up, what do you need? What do you need? And I was like, I have to see it. I have to see it. I can't, again, another journey. Like, I can't tell you where it's going, but once I get into it, then I can say, "Ooh, can I have that? Can I have that?" It's obviously that was a hard one for me to articulate. It's just something that comes naturally, but putting it into words is a little bit more challenging. So you said it beautifully.
Well, so many artists and creatives, I know for me too, it's so easy, intuitive to do. And people will say to me, "Why'd you put that lamp there?" I don't know. I just did because it's right. I can't, it's really hard to break the process down. It's one of the things that I love about teaching the process is because you have to break it down. Why did I put that lamp there? That's something that someone wants to know. And I can't just say because it was instinctive. How's that going to teach you anything? So it is a part of the process, but I think that it's so easy for creatives to sort of feel like everyone knows what you know, and only to learn that actually they don't, and that they can learn from someone who is even mastered a particular something that's creative. So do you think that anyone or everyone is creative?
I think in their own ways. I think even people who say they're not, maybe just haven't tapped into it. I think creativity is so much more than just loving to draw and paint. Maybe it's how you cook in the kitchen. Jake and I always talk about, how baking is so exact, and then, it's more like an illustration, and then cooking is more like, a painting where you just reckless abandonment if you need to. Maybe it's just the way that someone approaches their day. But yeah, I think everybody's got a little bit of creativity into them. It's just, how does it manifest itself into your life? And
Amen. I people will say, "I can't take your class. I'm not creative, or I'm not as creative as," and I'm like, whoa, yes, you are. And if this was calling to you or speaking to you on any level, it's asking to get out. It's asking to be represented in some way, to your point, whether it's cooking or decorating or painting or whatever it is. I think we all are born creative. I think that life and culture and expectations, and I feel like sometimes our comparisons with others sort of squash the creative vibe when it's still there, still wants to get out. And I say to people, if you want to learn something like decorating, and you really do want to learn it, then you create a practice. And that practice turns into just like a yoga practice. First time you go to yoga, you fall over. You can't hold the poses. You can't do a lot of things. But if you keep going and you keep practicing, one day you actually can hold the pose and for longer. And, and some days are better than others. Some days I do know exactly what lamp to use. And some days I'm stumped. But I have a process for how to get out of that. But the main thing is to use your creativity and turn it into a practice. And I so encourage that. And, you do this as a living. So it's almost as if you instinctively create, and you kind of said that, but the regular person doesn't always. So I'm glad you joined me in encouraging creativity on whatever level. And it could be, I loved what you said about be creative about you. It could be how you approach your day. That's creative. How you get your kids to school and picked up and taken care of. I mean, that took so much creativity.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So I think we're kind of I have a couple of signature questions that I love to ask. And the first one is living beautifully important, and why?
Yes, I think it is. And I think beautiful, everyone has a different definition of beauty. I would say I feel like it's an intersection of the tangible and intangible. I think living beautifully affects your mood. It can change your energy. And again, beauty, I think is living beautifully is different to every single person. But I say, why not? Why not let yourself have that enjoyment? And that was something that, in designing this brand, I just wanted to bring something playful, something fun, something beautiful into people's lives to lift their moods, bring restoration, whatever it may be. So absolutely, it's important.
I love that answer. So this one's a bit tough. And it always takes people aback. And I haven't figured out a way to reword the question that doesn't involve the word tombstone. So I'm going for it. If you had a hashtag on your tombstone, what would it be?
Ooh, that is unique.
It's kind of morbid, but one day I'll come up with a different way to ask it. I'll say in the future, your future tombstone, like someday, like 200,000 years from now.
I'm going to give a simple answer to that one and say hashtag grateful. Hashtag grateful.
Beautiful.
That I get to live a creative and fulfilled life, that I get to live life, just the simple things of walking outside and feeling the sun on your face, meeting the people that I've met, knowing the people that I've known, like all of it. I could just sum it up in one word and it would be grateful.
Wow, that's beautiful. And Courtney, I am so grateful that we had this time together and that we were able to just get real and talk about this lovely collection, but this experience that you are getting to have. So 2 more little questions. And the first is, can someone purchase direct through your website, or is it to the trade only?
Yes, it is direct to consumer and to the trade. Trade clients have a separate, at the footer of each page, there is a trade login and you can fill out the form. And then there's a trade program. But I wanted to also be available directly to consumers. So yes.
Fantastic. And so how do people access you, get in touch with you, tell them your website and all the pertinent information about contact?
Yeah, so the website, it's the name, it's www.at300nelson.com. There's several links on the site. Again, if you scroll down to the footer, if you want to collaborate, if you want to email, there are links there. You can fill out a form, or you can shoot me an email at hello@300nelson.com. You can email me, Courtney, at 300nelson.com. Very redundant. You can direct message me on Instagram. You can find me pretty approachable.
Well, again, I'm so grateful to have shared this time with you. Thank you for sharing your passion with the world and all of us. And I look forward to getting really to know your collection, and hopefully I'll be using it soon in some of my designs. So thank you.
Yes, and you know where to find me.
You got it.
For you. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too, Courtney. Bye now.
Bye.
I hope you loved meeting Courtney Krug and learning all about her brand at 300 Nelson. I know I learned a lot, and I'm intrigued by her use of pattern and her use of scale and how easy it is to incorporate pattern into your own homes, even if you're afraid to do so. And I'd love it if you would rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. And don't forget to share it with someone who might benefit. And as I like to say, don't wait. Today is a great day to decorate. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to Decorate Like a Design Boss. If you want more info on how to decorate your space like a pro, visit KimberlyGrigDesigns.com.